So can Dallas be saved?
Absolutely. Yeah. Dallas has a lot going for it. And for companies that want to get involved, this is a time to be proactive and not reactive, right? San Francisco, you are totally reacting to terrible problems. It's like you're already bleeding everywhere, right? You're dead on the table. You flatline. We got to try to revive it, right?
We don't have a lot of people pooping in the streets right now.
Not yet. I've seen it, but not very often, right? Now you just maybe you've got a flesh wound, right? You got a flesh wound and we need to sew it up, attach the arm back, we can save the city of Dallas. And if Dallas falls, the rest of the suburbs will fall after it. So we need to get Dallas back online, heading the right direction, heading north, not geographically, but economically. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of room to grow south.
Louis Darrouzet, how are you doing today, buddy?
Doing well. How are you, Conrad?
Great to have you here today.
Yeah, you as well.
Thanks for coming back. We had some technical difficulties.
It happens,
but we worked through them. I grew out a stash.
I see that.
Since then, I don't know what I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this thing long term.
Well, it's nice, it's.
Occasionally I'll put a little wax in it, get a little
upswing,
curl.
Yeah, there you go.
Not really if I have any important meetings that day, because I just have a hard time taking people that have mustaches seriously. I mean, honestly.
all right.
There are some successful people that just have stash, but to me, they're kind of funny.
Yeah, but it is just like a chunk of hair in the middle of your face, right? That's what it is. What does the wife think about it?
She hates it. She hates it.
So I think
it's probably not a long run on this thing.
Fair.
But maybe we'll get through the summer. I don't know. We'll see how long it goes. But I appreciate you coming back.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a while. We got to know each other through you were interviewing Scott Beck at Crow Holdings last year.
Yeah.
And
the Pecan Room,
yeah, and that's a nice little place, isn't it?
Old Parkland's lovely.
Yeah, just the whole place is.
It's a museum. Right?
It's a museum,
and they have. I think people forget that there's event spaces there, right? That you can actually rent out or use for events, and it's a lovely, lovely place.
It's beautiful. It doesn't get much better than that place in Dallas. That's for sure.
What, the most expensive office space?
Yeah, pretty much the most expensive office space. That's for sure. So, but we were there. Y'all had an event there, and man, I was just kind of blown up. I left that meeting going, God, how do I get involved? How do I kind of support these guys? I love what they're doing, and I'm just such a big proponent of Dallas. And, business and growth, and obviously commercial real estate is a big part of that. And so it's really cool to see what you're doing at MCBA. And what I'd love for you to do is just kind of tell us a little bit about kind of high level. Sure. What does MCBA do?
Well, I mean,
a multitude of things.
Yeah, they do a lot of things. And the organization's only 3.5 years old. But it kind of, at the inception, we looked around the country and we saw a lot of cities that were essentially dying, meaning their populations were starting to fall. Yep. Companies were leaving. They were having one problem or another. And it's not just the large cities, right? The small town USA is dying as well.
Yeah.
People are moving. Markets are shifting. Dallas and DFW really as a whole, because we service the whole Metroplex.
Yep.
Dallas is kind of teetering on that trajectory. And if you look at the city of Dallas, it's grown in population from the mid to late 1800s.
Sure.
Up to 2020.
Yep.
And that was kind of the inflection point. And then they started losing population, or at least losing it faster than people were coming in.
Yeah.
And we started to see some of the similar problems starting to pop their head up in Dallas, specifically in some of the other cities. Some of the suburbs do it well, some of them don't. But but we wanted to kind of get out ahead of it and ensure that DFW can continue to thrive. And we're continuing to create an environment in the Metroplex where businesses and people have opportunity.
Yep.
And Dallas is, or when I say Dallas, I mean DFW. DFW.
Don't ignore those people over in Tarrant County.
No, I mean, we service Tarrant County as well, right? And we've got lots of employees that are out there.
Dallas people are friendly to the Fort Worth people.
Of course.
I mean, we're hey, come on over.
Come on over.
Yeah,
right? They want to.
Yeah, they're not as friendly going the other direction for some reason. I don't get it.
Yards. It's all right.
I know. It's okay though.
It's all right. I mean, it's a.
But yes, you're servicing all of DFW.
Yeah. So we service the 5 core counties. So Tarrant, Denton, Collin, Rockwall, and Dallas.
Yep.
And we created a business league. We get companies to join, and we get their employees to get engaged and involved in the community.
Yep.
Both charitably and civically. So we have partner charities that companies will go and volunteer for or contribute to financially or support them in some other way. And then we help companies get their employees out to vote in local elections specifically. We're a nonpartisan organization.
Yep.
So I know there's a lot of noise about this upcoming presidential election, but for us, there'll be some nonpartisan stuff on the ticket, and we'll support in that way. But we don't take a stance on anything as it regards to the partisan races. Yep. Our next major race will be
next May.
Where they'll reelect the entire city council in Dallas and a lot of city councils and mayors around the Metroplex.
Yep.
So, we had worked with some initial companies, and now, kind of fast forward to where we are today, we've got over 100 companies that have joined.
It's awesome.
Some major organizations like Ryan, we've got TBK, right? Yep. Dallas Capital Bank.
Yeah, sure.
Beck Ventures. We've got some large organizations, and of the 100 or so companies that participate in our voting program, we had 20 that were above 90% turnout this last
awesome.
May.
Yeah.
And the average for the city of Dallas was like 6%.
6%. Yeah.
So I think what that turned out to be is the number of our member employees that voted in the city of Dallas was like 1.5% of the vote about.
Wow.
So we're already kind of into percentage points of the total turnout. And the goal is really simple you think about what a city needs to be successful, right? Why does the city exist? It's to conduct trade, right? That's why they existed. And
that's right.
People will make a case, well, there's a social component and this, and I'm like, yeah, well, that's a benefit of people being close together.
Yeah.
But why are people close together? They're close because if you raise chickens and I raise cattle,
that's right.
and someone else grows wheat, well,
it's all about trade.
Yeah, we have to trade with each other. So if we're closer in proximity, now you have a marketplace, and that creates a city, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. There's more services, and it just grows. So at the core of cities has to be trade and commerce. Not to say that the other stuff isn't important, but if the commerce or trade breaks down, you won't have a city anymore. Then the other stuff won't happen either.
That's right.
So
you lose jobs.
Right.
You lose tax base.
Exactly. So we've found that the main core pillars, and it's what pretty much everyone agrees on, are crime, homelessness. Like nobody wants high crime or high homelessness. People want low taxes, low regulations. They want great schools, and they want to be able to build and grow their business.
Streets that don't have potholes.
Yeah. Like just
city services.
City services, those core city services. And that's our focus. Like which candidate in each race is best equipped from their experience, from their education, to make the most educated decisions to guide the city in getting those core city services done.
Yep.
And we're getting further and further away from that. And you look at cities like Los Angeles or San Francisco or Chicago. Portland, right? And they're really losing on, whether it's homelessness or crime or take Seattle, for example.
Sure.
Amazon was headquartered there for years. City council decided what? They wanted to add an additional city income tax.
Right.
Amazon said no, like they tried to lobby against it, but the city council said, no, sorry, if you make over this amount, we're going to tax you more. So what did Amazon do? They left.
Yeah.
They moved their entire headquarters across the river into Bellevue.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that simple. So you have people that don't understand market dynamics, and that if you push a company, they have other options.
Yep.
They can just move across the street, and then their taxes are different or their regulations are different. So that makes your city less desirable.
Yep.
And when companies leave, the jobs leave, the people leave, your tax base falls, your city starts collapsing.
And that's a great segue into kind of what I think we should jump into next, which is, let's look at DFW.
Sure.
Right? And you just used that example of Seattle and Amazon and moving across the river.
Yeah.
Well, the suburbs have been doing the same thing to the city of Dallas to their success. I mean, look at Frisco, Texas.
Correct.
Unbelievable, right? They're landing all these massive headquarters, all these entertainment venues, and why, right? And so that's the $1 million question, and we should dig into that a little bit. Is why are those areas of DFW, and DFW in general is still growing massively, right? We're 418 people a day move here to the area. So it's not like we're losing population growth, but city of Dallas specifically is losing, right? Now there's a couple reasons for that. One, we're landlocked, right? We don't have a lot more land. But, there's also a lot of benefits to the suburbs, and they have pro-business mayors, they have pro-business city councils, right? And they get aggressive on incentives, and they do things like the ease of permitting to win these deals, and Warner Brothers and PGA and all these deals that we think about. So how do we, if you're Dallas, how do you take that flex tape seal, right, of the water that's coming out of it, right?
Sure.
You've seen the commercial.
Right.
How do you plug
the hole?
How do you plug that hole?
Stop the bleeding.
How do you stop that bleeding? Because it's happening.
It is. And I think there's just a handful of things that they need to fix or replace or change in the city of Dallas. And a lot of it gets to, you start at the city council.
Yeah.
We've got 14 city council members. Not one of them has a finance background.
Right. How big is that budget again?
$4.8 billion.
$4.8 billion. Not one person on city council
has a finance background.
And does any of them even have a business degree?
I think there's two.
Two even? So they might have taken
so there's like
one or two courses of finance, maybe.
Right. And so there's like 2 or 3 people, including the mayor, that can read a P&L.
Yep.
And they've got a $4.8 billion budget.
Yeah.
And then they manage 15,000 employees. That's essentially a Fortune 250 company in the United States.
Yep.
The individuals, while they may be perceived as representative of each district, I'm not sure if that's actually the case, or I don't know if they're the best qualified candidate to be in the districts. And just because you have representatives, if people don't understand simple things like, IRR or the time value of money, or how making investments can pay off over time, right? If you think about, this is a kind of
some of it's just common sense, Louis.
Some of it, you think about it and you say, well, why didn't we put the Dallas Cowboys Stadium in Fair Park, right? And they're like, well, they wanted $600 million or whatever the number was, in taxpayer subsidized. Well, I'll tell you this: I'd be willing to bet that the amount of money that went into other subsidies in that part of town is way more than $600 million over the last 10 years. Right. So we're spending that money.
Not to mention, Deep Ellum would have connected with Fair Park. Can you imagine the hotels and the venue? Kudos to Arlington.
Yeah.
Kudos to Arlington, right?
They were aggressive.
They were aggressive, and they got the deal done. But can you think, we have this initiative of reviving South Dallas and some of the blighted areas of our city. And there was no bigger catalyst than literally the world's largest sports franchise.
The number one.
And Laura Miller had to tap Jerry on his leg and say, we're just not going to do that here. Right. Now, I'm not going to put all the blame on her, but she certainly wasn't proactive in getting the Cowboys there, which could have changed
the trajectory of that area forever. And not even in a, here's the interesting part about that part of the city. You want to improve that part of the city, right? Mm-hmm. You have to, whenever I've looked a lot at like economic development of, something that fascinates me is kind of the process, because my background's in manufacturing, right? And one of the lowest tech manufacturing is upholstery, like clothing, right? Like textiles.
Yep.
So when a country goes from agricultural civilization to industrialized, it's usually textiles. You think sweatshops, right? And you think bad working conditions, and well, at least it's in the shade, right? And there's the safety protocols not there. Well, they don't know any better yet, right? And it's like you expect someone to go from never doing something to world class overnight. It doesn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. But if you watch a country like China is probably our most recent example, and we were like that before. There were sweatshops here in the early 1900s, right? There were shops that burned down in New York, right? People died. Same thing in China, right? Mm-hmm. Well, but China, as their workforce learned...
Louis, pronounce it properly. China. Right?
That's how he says it?
I think that's how you do it now.
China. Okay.
Something along those lines.
Something like that. I don't know. So... when
we're gonna keep that in the episode. By the way.
Keep that in. Yeah, I have a visa to China still. Maybe they'll revoke it.
Yeah.
So
like to have a little fun here.
Yeah. So as a country becomes more industrialized, right? They learn cycle time, they learn quality control, they learn safety.
Yeah.
Well, now maybe plastics parts manufacturing comes in, and higher tech stuff starts coming in as their workforce becomes developed, right?
Yep.
You think about South Dallas, I mean, there's not a lot of employment opportunities there, right? Mm-hmm. You've got some grocery stores, you have some fast food restaurants,
right?
Maybe some car repair places. There's not a lot of options.
Not a lot of industry.
So you can't put an accounting firm down there and be like, well, we brought jobs there. We're like, no, you displace people. That would displace, right?
Yeah.
Putting something like the Cowboy Stadium there.
That's a catalyst.
That has enough volume of people that the community would then have enough volume to create tons of little pilot businesses, parking or hot dog stands or food trucks or restaurants or bars. Like that would create the supply.
Apartment complexes and everything that feeds into housing and all that stuff.
And it wouldn't have required a displacement, right?
No.
So if you want to fix South Dallas, you need a couple anchor businesses that have higher paying, like, I would say trade skill jobs. Like if you think about this, envision South Dallas if you put a 3,000 or 4,000 employee GM plant there.
Right.
Yeah. Where you're paying 20 to 35 an hour with overtime and full benefits and medical, dental, everything, right? Yeah. 401k, pension. Yeah. Well, now your leading generation is building wealth. They're paying for their own houses. They're fixing their own houses. They need less subsidies, right? And then their kids, maybe they're going to college, right? So that starts that process of leveling up that other areas have been able to do. So that, if you want to fix South Dallas, you just need some large employers that are paying decent, right?
Maybe we can get Eric Johnson to get the Hunts to bring the Chiefs. It's a fair part.
I mean, I've heard it.
They've teased it.
They teased it.
I don't think there's any way that's
They're
happening.
also teasing, like, casinos and stuff. So we'll see.
That's true.
We'll see.
That would be phenomenal, though.
That would be...
I mean, Dallas at this point, with our growth and how large we're getting, I think we could support 2 football teams. Jerry will never let it happen. I don't think. But
although, Jerry, I don't know. Jerry's in for the drama, though.
That's true.
Right?
That would create some drama.
It would create a lot of drama, and it would probably just increase the value of his franchise more. Right? And then, all it would take
But maybe we can finally get Fair Park redone if
we get
the
something
Chiefs.
like that. Yeah,
because
down into Fair Park.
I would actually go to games, but I have no interest in like going.
It's a hike.
It's a hike. And
it's an all-day thing if you're going to go out there.
Yeah.
And but for the city, Dallas Fort Worth is really donut out, like it's kind of rotting at the core.
Yeah.
And I used to work at Keurig Dr. Pepper, and I always found it interesting because most of the employees.
Are you a Dr. Pepper fan?
Yeah, I like Dr. Pepper. I haven't drank soda in a while now, but like Dr. Pepper's great.
I'm just not a fan for some reason. It's okay.
They've got a lot of great brands, right? Like
I know. It's just not Dr.
Canada
Pepper.
Dry, Sunkist, like all that.
It is kind of Dr. Pepper though. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the driver.
It is. Yeah. It is one of the largest. And
but if you could, and we're totally getting off on a tangent.
Yeah.
A Coke or Dr. Pepper, what are you going with?
I mean, I'd have to do like a Diet Dr. Pepper or a Diet Coke. I mean,
but you got to pick one. Like,
okay,
what flavor? I mean, if you can only have one,
probably Coke Zero. That's what I'd have. It's a little different sweetener package.
Okay. Right, so that tells me is you're a bigger Coke fan than you are Dr. Pepper at the end of the day.
Yeah, at the end of the day, and
I'm the same.
People would. It would be funny.
You know what I would actually have? A Mexican Coke.
All right, real sugar.
The glass bottle. There's something about when you drink out of the glass bottle.
It makes it a little more.
It just feels better.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's probably because of the real sugar.
Yeah, they have the real sugar. It was
sadly that used to be Coca-Cola and then, high fructose world.
High fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners.
We can that's a whole nother tangent. We could talk about our government killing us with the things they put in our food.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother tangent.
That's a whole.
We won't go down that.
We're not going to open up that can of worms. We'd have to get RFK in here and have that conversation.
That's true. We did see him.
We did. Yeah, we saw him. That was really interesting.
Not electable.
Well, I thought his theory about how he could be elected was interesting. I never thought about that.
This is true.
And that was, and what he said, well, all he has to do is win a couple states, right? Yeah. Or do better than Biden in a couple states. And if he wins those states, and Biden wins states, and Trump wins states, and nobody gets
to 270,
right?
That's
all he has to do is get a couple states. If he can focus all his efforts in a couple states and win those, nobody gets to 270. So then what happens?
He's not going to get. He can't.
It goes to Congress, right? So
that was a very interesting hypothetical.
It's a very.
And I had no idea that was a possibility.
Right, and when it goes to Congress, each state only gets one vote for who they want to pick out of the top 3 candidates. So the House has to pick, right?
Right.
And they can't do anything else until they select it. So they're forced to pick relatively quickly. And the thought is like, if you're pro-Trump, you never vote Biden. And if you're pro-Biden, you would never vote Trump, or your career would be over as a congressman.
That's right.
So your middle road is RFK.
Now, I think Harlan was the one who asked that question, too.
He was.
Yeah.
Which was interesting.
That was interesting because, obviously, Harlan's in the know.
Well, people are in the know. And I think what's interesting about it is that it would be an outlier.
Oh, yeah.
And Harlan and the Crows, they love history, they love art, and they love politics. And just thinking about elections or politics, even watching a situation or scenario play out that's different from the norm is probably very cool for them to watch because they just get to see so many different things.
Right.
So it was an interesting.
Yeah, that was
interesting conversation.
Let's get back to the city of Dallas.
Back to the city of Dallas.
Yeah, let's go back there.
Yeah.
So council. So we got a lot of. Council's probably the first thing that has to be really fixed.
Correct. Right. And so why we talked about Dr. Pepper is that I noticed that the executives at Keurig lived in the city of Dallas. The rank and file employees, most of them were in Plano and Frisco and Prosper in the burbs. And what was clear was that the executives could afford private school.
Yep.
And most of the rank and file didn't want to pay private school.
Sure.
And they could go and live in Plano or Prosper or Frisco and get a much better education than they could in the city of Dallas.
For sure.
So that's one of the major reasons, one, why a lot of companies are putting their headquarters outside of the city of Dallas, because DISD is underperforming. I think like 30 or 40% of their schools are DRF rated. And so it's the city council and the school board that need drastic, really just change of a few seats, right? To make better policy decisions.
And then we've got to get those policy decisions filtered down then into the different departments.
Right.
Whether it be economic development,
so that's the city manager.
Zoning. Right.
Right. But if you have if you get the right city council, they'll elect the right, or they'll hire the right city manager. And really what you need for a city manager position like the city of Dallas is we need a change agent, right? You need like someone like a COO or a VP of ops from private industry. They'll come in and break glass. And they'll say like, this is broken. What are all these people doing? Why do we have so many people here? And just really slim down resources and find efficiencies, right? One, the city will run on a cheaper budget, so taxes will be down. And two, they'll drive efficiencies in the processes. So you're getting permits, you're getting zoning, you're getting entitlements done and much quicker. So then developments happen.
That's right.
And people won't be held up like Scott Beck for 10 years. Because they're trying to force affordable housing.
The story about him chasing that gym. What was the gym?
Lifetime Fitness. I love Lifetime Fitness.
Okay. And the fact that the city, Lifetime Fitness's requirement was that you had to have
basketball court.
Mm-hmm. And because the code or the zoning on that site only allowed for got a little friend flying around.
Hey, little buddy. Little moth.
Required that you needed 20 or 22 clear for that gym, right, to play basketball. Well, the code only allowed like 12 feet.
Right.
And so the proposal from Scott's group was like, hey, we will make the outside of the building look like it's 2 stories. Right. But we just need this variance. So we can put a basketball court in here. And then we can have Lifetime Fitness and kick off this project with apartments and office and all these other things. And the city did nothing.
No, they used it against him, right? They said, no, we're not going to approve that unless you agree to put in 20% low-income housing into your development. Right. And it's just like a bend the knee kind of, and it's terrible because they were planning on developing that property before Legacy West existed or even started. If you think about Legacy West, if you put that into the Midtown area, that the whole area would have been revitalized, and you'd have so many amazing shops.
I mean, I go to Legacy West when I do go north of 635. I know you don't go north of 635.
I do.
Every once in a while.
Every now and again.
Yeah. I get a nosebleed when I go that far north. But anyhow, it's incredible. It's beautiful. It's clean. They've got it figured out. There's office above. You got, every...
Condos, apartments,
every nice restaurant. Louis Vuitton, last time I drove through there.
Gucci, Coach.
Stores there.
Yep.
All of that could have been
on the street,
literally 2 blocks to the east of our office right now.
Right
there. And instead, City of Dallas has been nothing but just a roadblock to get that.
And
that
is,
and that's the perfect example.
A perfect example of individuals who are sitting on city council that don't understand the bigger picture. They can't see it. They're so focused on their tiny little agenda of affordable housing or this or that, and not saying we shouldn't, but there's a lot of affordable housing in the area around it. I grew up right around the area. There's tons of like apartments, inexpensive homes. Like, it's not...
The point is the amount of tax revenue that the city has missed out on in the last decade.
Could have paid for the Cowboy Stadium. Like multiple times over, probably.
Yeah.
And it's just...
And sadly, that whole anti-business is then just kind of perpetrated through all the city departments, right? Let's not be proactive in permitting or zoning or, I've heard stories from some of my developer buddies, like they'll turn in their plans and the font might be the wrong size or whatever. And next thing you know, wrong. Back
bottom of the list.
Bottom of the file again, right? Versus if you're working on a project like that or whatever at City of Frisco, they're like, oh, well, how can I help you? Why don't you come in and let's sit down and let's talk through this and let's get this done, right?
And off your plate.
And off the plate and into production, and let's make our city better. And instead, you got roadblocks at the city. So you got to get rid of the roadblocks. You got to get rid of these city council members that are just not pro-business, pro-Dallas, all these things. That's why the city of Dallas is losing.
It is. It's and people are leaving. I mean, Ryan's going to be in Plano right here in just a few months. They're leaving.
Yep.
You had 7-Eleven that was downtown. They're now out in Las Colinas, right? I mean, you're going to start seeing more people. I know we're getting people moving in, but they're coming with major subsidies.
Yeah, sure.
And if they don't get crime under control or homelessness under control,
right,
you're going to see more people leave. And I'm not sure they actually want to fix those things. If you look at the Dallas city, if you look over the last 3 years, the police force, for example, the budget is slightly increasing each year because by state law, they can't defund the police, right? They made that illegal. Well,
where would defund the police be a smart idea, Louis? Is that a smart idea?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think it's a terrible idea. And I think most people feel that way. Nobody wants crime.
No.
Even criminals don't want crime, right? They want to steal your Louis Vuitton.
That's right.
They don't want someone to come steal the Louis Vuitton they just stole from you them.
That's right.
Right? They want to hold on to it, right? So they don't like crime either. Nobody wants it. So
I think I read the other day, 87 people in Chicago over the 4th of July murdered. Unbelievable.
It's out of control.
Out of control.
Yeah.
I mean, I just... It blows my mind, we're talking about problems here in Dallas, but there's some cities that are just
lost. And we don't
want to become that.
I can understand where people do the mental gymnastics, or at least some people on these city councils are like, well, these people, they don't know any better, or they don't know this, or they've had a hard life. And okay, you can be compassionate on a person, but tough on crime, right? Like the person is not the crime.
Yeah.
Right? Like people make mistakes. That's why they call it you go to prison and corrections, right? It's kind of like hopefully correct your corrective behavior, right?
Yeah.
You hopefully will do something different in the future.
Is that word still allowed, or is that too woke? Because correction's too woke.
I don't know these days.
Now it might be like rehabilitate. I don't know.
Sure, it might be. And
I'm sorry,
but if
corrections just seems a little aggressive today.
Well, the corrections.
It probably is going to go. What? Mark my words. Corrections.
We'll get woked. We'll get woked away and say, no, it's just a rehab center.
Yeah.
Retraining, it's like life training. Re-life training.
Yeah, that's probably it.
But it's like, in theory, that's what it is supposed to do. You do a crime, you get punished, and then
that's right.
With the theory of you don't commit that crime again in the future. That's literally, it's no different than what we do with our kids. Mm-hmm. You lied to me, you're grounded for 2 days, don't do it again, or be grounded for 4. Right? Like, okay, I hope he doesn't lie to me again. That was the purpose. It's not because I want to punish my kids or make them feel bad.
Yeah.
But it's kind of been taken that to the extreme where it's like, we'll just validate all the bad behavior and it's okay. Mm-hmm. And we're just not going to, press charges, or we're not going to arrest them and hold them for any length of time. But if you look at the police budget's been going up, but the police force has been going down. And, so they know what they're doing. They're making sure they comply with the law, but they're not hiring more police officers. And the goal is to hire 250 new police officers every year.
Do you like the new police chief? What's his name?
I mean, he's a good politician.
Yeah.
He seems to care a lot.
Yeah.
I just don't see, like, for the last 3 years, the target's been 250 each year.
We're not hiring enough.
We hire 200, but we lose 250. So it's a net loss of 50 year after year. After 3 years in a row, we've lost the same amount of people. Kind of sounds intentional at that point, right? Like you didn't even try to cover your gap by hiring 350 to get back up because don't worry, they spent the money on things, right? To make sure they didn't get the budget.
Do you think, is it a labor problem? Like can't find them, or do you think we're just not?
Well, that's what we're told, but that's you don't
think that's a valid answer? Maybe AI can fix it. Maybe we get AI.
Yeah. How do you solve a labor problem? You pay people a little bit more.
Yeah, pay more.
That always gets more people in the door, right? You just pay them more. Pay the cops more. Like if you're a police officer and you're listening, like I'd love for the city to pay Dallas police officers more so that we get more Dallas police officers so not everybody is overworked and like on edge, right? That you talk about when people are over policing or they get maybe too aggressive. Well, if all you're doing all day long is going to assault, to shooting, to assault, to fighting, to domestic violence, and those are the only things you're seeing all day long, guess what? Everything starts to look like that. It's like PTSD from going to war, right? You see someone who hears a loud bang and they freak out because it's like, it reminds them of what they experienced overseas. Well, if all someone sees is aggressive situations, they're going to behave aggressively. Like, it's hard to like combat that natural response. I'd rather us have more police officers than we need. Have them go get a little heavy eating donuts and coffee and spending time getting to know the businesses and the people and actually serve and protect instead of like clean up the aftermath. That's all they're doing is playing cleanup. And
you know what's crazy is like even in my neighborhood we employ off-duty officers, right? Like we're paying, right, to police our own neighborhood because regular police
aren't doing it enough.
Right.
So we're in certain neighborhoods, like mine as well, like we're already subsidizing our police force with our own dollars, which is interesting if you think about it.
Yeah.
And so what about the communities that can't afford to do that?
Sure.
They're getting screwed. Mm-hmm. And that's not fair to them either. And they a lot of those communities are the ones that want more police to begin with.
That's right.
So you got to get more police. The homelessness problem, I'm not convinced any city wants to fix the homeless problem, really.
It's a tough one.
Well, it's tough. I was at a council meeting and Kara Mendelson, city council member Kara Mendelson, asked the question to the homeless commission or whatever, and she said, how many mental health or addiction support beds does the city of Dallas have? You know what the answer was? 0. None. We don't have any. How are you supposed to fix this problem? Right? Just put people in a house? Put someone that's addicted to fentanyl or meth or another hard drug just in an apartment? Like, we got them housed. Great. That's a recipe for disaster. Yeah. Right? You could wind up dead.
Yeah.
And, you think about the incentives in these homeless situations. They're not incentivized to solve it. Because if their problem is big, they get a big check from the federal government. Yeah. Right? Tens of millions of dollars. If you're California, billions of dollars. And there's not really
let's give them free needles.
I know. It's wild. Yeah.
California is just so whack. Like, let's promote the problem.
Yeah, so then they're not getting other sicknesses and it's like, but if they make the problem go away, then they stop getting federal money. So do they really want it? But what is the city? You look at City of Dallas, what are they doing with the money?
Yeah,
buying real estate. We could turn this hotel into a homeless shelter, but do they? No, they haven't.
Right.
We could turn this property into homeless. It's 3 years later, still haven't really done anything with it, but we spent $50 million or $30 million or whatever on it. they're just growing their balance sheet, right?
That's frustrating.
It is. And like, I think I don't come from a political background, so I just kind of look at things matter of fact of like what's going on. Like that's where I put my engineering hat on. I'm like, well, who's benefiting from this problem? Well, the cities are, because they're getting a ton of money from the federal government, and they're not really solving the problem. Because they're just talking about, oh, we got this many people housed, and then the next metric they talk about is like, well, we kicked out this many people after a year because we're not letting them stay on the subsidy. Well, then what? They're back on the street. Great.
And then the police is doing nothing about the homeless.
Well, of course.
I mean, I have the same panhandlers.
Yeah.
At the same intersections.
Been just getting out of prison 2 weeks ago for the last 4 years, right?
Yes.
It's like the same sign.
I mean, I'm just like, what are we doing? Like, that's one thing.
It's big money.
You just like clean it up.
Well, so people are like, well, they need help. I'm like, well, they make more money than you think, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I just did the math, and let's say,
I love watching them like walk away and then they like get into a decent car afterwards.
Yeah, a lot of them have homes. Like I've talked
for sure.
I've talked to police officers that have like kind of followed some of them before, and they're like, they don't even live in Dallas.
So let's have like a little task force. And if these guys are getting in cars and driving, like, they need to be fined.
It should be fraud.
Yeah, it should be fraud. Let's fine them $5,000 or whatever the case may be.
Well, I mean, technically, but then they could be like, well, I'm just acting. Right? I'm a street performer. Technically, that's what they are in a lot of the cases, right? Because like you do the quick math and you're like, all right, let's say you get one red light every 2 minutes, right?
Sure.
And you get average $1 per red light.
Yep.
Okay, so it's $30 an hour.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's serious money over the course of the year.
And don't think that occasionally some rich guy doesn't throw them a 20 here or there.
Yeah, so average it out. Like,
yeah, I mean, no, they're doing well.
$30 an hour.
That's what drives me crazy when I see
$60,000 a year, right?
The same guys. I'm like, dude, these guys are professionals. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's tax free.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're getting $2 an hour average, that's over 6 figures.
So yeah, just another thing we got to figure out.
Right.
And that's crazy. Street performers, unbelievable.
I mean, you could technically make that case, right? And
yeah, I guess you could.
Then you'd have to write a law. You'd be a good
attorney.
Yeah,
Louis, you'd be a good attorney too.
Well, I try to be creative, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of the
totally creative, right?
So, but the homeless, if we don't get that taken care of, and we build a $1.5 billion convention center,
right?
It's going to end up like San Francisco, right? San Francisco was like top of the list for conventions. Now it's the bottom because crime and homelessness.
Right.
Dallas will become the same, right? And there's, and I'm harping on Dallas. Look, Dallas has done a lot of great things in the last 20 years. Like,
no doubt,
it is an entirely different city than when I left here in 2001 after graduating Jesuit. I mean, it was a ghost town,
right?
So even Laura Miller and Rawlings and Dwayne Caraway, as he was there for a little bit. Like, I mean, they generally, downtown has gotten a lot better. You got Discovery Plaza, Clyde Warren Park. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening.
Well, you've got some good proactive developers that have done some great things. Hillwood and Victory.
Right. Old Parkland. It's like, as you've got a lot of people wanting to play in Dallas, and they've gotten a bunch of good stuff done. So I don't want to say like they're just terrible.
Don't disagree.
But with a couple tweaks to individuals sitting on the city council, individuals who could refine and optimize the city better, it would be the #1 city in the country.
Yeah.
And one of them in the world, honestly, if you had the right leadership.
Right.
And it's not
let's use our lovely neighbor to the west, Fort Worth.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of similar size to a degree. I mean, it's smaller, but similar.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just analyze like their downtown versus ours.
So we actually do that with MCBA.
I know you do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those stats.
Okay.
And the crime, massively lower.
It's like 9x.
9x.
From Fort Worth to Dallas.
Yeah.
So you've got Dallas that's...
Both old towns, been around forever, but old buildings, not in the suburbs, probably school systems, I'm guessing relatively close. I don't know if, you're not probably sending your kids to Fort Worth ISD, right?
Yeah, school systems aren't, they're probably comparable in terms of their performance.
Yeah. But the point is they have their act together on downtown, and you got thriving areas, no crime. I've never walked in downtown Fort Worth and ever felt like, man, I need to look over my shoulder. Who's coming around the corner?
Right.
Right?
Or your car was going to get stolen.
Yeah, or your car's going to get stolen, or you're going to get robbed, or any of that stuff.
You're about 30 times more likely to get your car stolen in the city of Dallas than you are in Fort Worth. Right? So about 1 to 2 cars get stolen from the city of Dallas downtown area every day. In Fort Worth, it's 1 to 2 cars a month. It's a drastic
And I know
difference.
there's a few different reasons for that. One, the Bass brothers own so much of the real estate in downtown
and they have
Fort
private
Worth.
security.
And they got private security. And the problem with downtown Dallas is we have a lot of institutionally owned buildings from owners that are in New York or LA. They kind of care less. Right. As long as their building's performing, don't really care about what's going on the streets outside.
Correct.
And so because we don't have that local ownership of a lot of that real estate, I think that herein lies our problem.
Right. And there's a lot of individuals that would want to buy real estate in Dallas.
Yeah. Now, Jonas Woods is making some good inroads that way.
I know, there's other people that have been interested in looking at properties in the city of Dallas. But their concern is that the city, they're nervous about interacting with the city. They don't trust it.
Right.
They don't trust the city of Dallas. And that's
a bad thing.
That's a bad thing. And that's not the place you want to be, right? If you're going to put tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into an investment, you want to, it's all about risk and managing risk. And there's a lot of risk and there's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. And the cities that can mitigate as much risk as possible are the ones that are going to win.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what you're seeing in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, we'll work with you. We'll figure this out.
Yep.
So, and then the last part is DISD, right? You've got 22,000 employees. Not even 10,000 are teachers. Not even half.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, right? And I sit here and I look at it and I'm like, okay, what are we doing? Right?
How does that make any sense?
It doesn't.
All I can do is go back to my childhood and go, okay, you look at your school, you got a few people in administration. It's rest teachers and coaches.
Yeah, so they have 12,000
cafeteria people. Got a few custodians.
Yeah, they've got 12,000 administration.
Insane.
And then you've got 9,000 something.
Yeah, so a lot of fat.
Teachers. I mean, if that wouldn't fly in a business.
No.
Right? If that was private industry, you will see this in the next 6 months. You will see industry cutting jobs because interest rates have been up so high for so long, right? And it's not that people are bad performers. It's just that they have to trim because
when your profits aren't
there, right? And when your performance at these schools is not there,
there has to be repercussions.
Yeah, and I think the school districts are angry at Abbott because he didn't increase their budget. Right? I think that was a way to, I don't know, I'm conjecturing here, but it is one of the, that's uncomfortable. But one of the things that forces the school districts to do is start to make cuts because they're not getting any more money.
Right.
They have to get more efficient.
Yeah.
So where do they cut? Do they cut teachers? Probably not.
No.
Right? So they're cutting administration. And not to say that those people don't, I wouldn't want them to find a job, but the administrative jobs, you can do that work in a lot of places. And there's if you're not working for the ISD, maybe you're working for a private school or a charter school. I mean, there's a lot of options in the area.
Right.
But we need more teachers and teachers that are better qualified, and we need more focus on performance and how the students are actually learning. And
for sure.
And I think just in talking, this is probably a little bit more, this kind of skirts the edge of what people like kind of feel. But one of my good friends, she works for an organization in South Carolina that tours schools and kind of coaches the teachers, and she goes and looks at classrooms and a lot of public schools, the frustration a lot of the teachers are having is that they're having to housebreak kids. So what do you do if you're a teacher and you got kids just eating off the table, or not washing their hands, or not saying yes sir, no sir, or yes ma'am, and they're just mouthing off and cussing and just literally, if they've been raised and they didn't have any kind of guidelines as a child, they're like, it's almost like feral at some places. No, it's not everywhere, but like they are starting to see that's the problem. Because if you have even just a handful of kids that don't even know common human interaction and what society views as kind of normal, you end up having to teach them that.
Yeah, sure.
And they're not learning how to learn. They're having to like, well, don't, you eat with a knife and a fork, not with your hands, right? You don't, and
I get it.
So the school districts have a lot of work to do, but it falls on parents as well.
It goes back into the whole parenting and the single family homes now,
It's hard. It's hard to bring that level of presence and make sure that your kids are getting their work done, and I had a interesting scenario with my kids because we were in private school at St. Rita, and then my daughter went to Shelton, and then we were trying to get her back into St. Rita, but they were full. So she did a year at Bradfield, which is public school in Highland Park. And I've always, I did private school my whole life. I've been in and around public schools.
You speak so well, by the way, because private school learning. I'm just a public school kid over here.
Well,
you use big words, Louis.
I don't use that big of words. Like
I'm just teasing. But please keep going.
Yeah, but what I noticed was it's not so much whether or not it's private or public. I think what matters more is the presence of their parents. Because Bradfield is public.
Sure.
And they do really well.
Yeah.
But you know what I noticed? Their parents are there. They're involved.
That's right.
So when the parents are involved, the performance is better. Straight up. Right? The gap closes between public and private.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it's
no doubt about it.
It's where the parents are placing intention, right? And it's like kind of like you value things that you pay money for, right? So if you spend a lot of money on something, you're going to get your value out of it, right? And so parents, like my parents, for example, sent me to Jesuit. And they said, there was 4 of us. And they spent every free penny they had to get us into those schools.
The Catholic discount a little bit.
And I also had the work grant discount where I had to clean windows and vacuum floors. Yeah, I was on work grant. And so there wasn't a lot of extra cash.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It is. Yeah. They scholarship people. You can do work grant. They try to work with people.
Yeah. Love that school, by the way.
But, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But my parents valued our education that much.
Yeah.
That they were willing to spend almost all of their free cash on getting us that education.
Yeah.
If parents at public school were paying that much attention, whether they cost the money or not, and being intentional about, hey, how did you do on your math test? Hey, did you study for history? Did you study for your, reading quiz or whatever? Kids would perform better. And when the parents are involved, the teachers are more involved, they care more, right? And that's what it all boils down to. It does. And I think that's where we get to we actually get to the problem where we face in some of the states. You saw it last year and the year before that. It was where the teachers were like, well, the parents, they don't know. we know as administrators what the kids need. And I can understand, like, after hearing some of these stories, like, they're not wrong in some places. Like, parents aren't parenting in some cases.
Yeah.
They should. It's their responsibility.
Do you think
ultimately.
the school should allow the kids to select their gender when they're...
I'm not even going to talk about that right now.
I'm totally kidding. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. That's a real slippery slope.
Like, I mean,
that will fire me up too.
I'm Catholic.
Yeah.
You know where I stand on that.
Yeah.
So
I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
But it just reminded me of, like, in California now, I think they're basically like the schools don't have to communicate with the parents about anything if the kid wants to say, oh, I want to identify as a cat or a female and I'm a boy or whatever the case may be. I mean, it's getting wild out there.
Right. And that is, I think, to my point a second ago, like, that is the result of parents not being present enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a slap in the face during the pandemic and the government shutdowns that parents were all of a sudden really involved because they were there and they could see what they were learning and hearing.
Right. Yeah.
And then people were like, whoa, like, this is not okay, right? And then so it's been now it's like right on the table, everybody can see it, and it's more publicly visible. But I think getting teachers compensated well, getting quality teachers, leaning up on the administration, and finding ways to get parents engaged in their kids' education is really
it's huge.
How you solve that problem, which is hard, especially now with the economy where it is, right? With inflation just like out of control and
parents having to work more or do jobs. Or
right. They have less to go around. It's a challenging time. I mean, it feels not challenging, but it is, right? It's like we're being told everything's great and the economy's booming. The stock market's like new highs almost every day, but it's like all on debt.
Yeah.
It's credit card debt, right? And eventually the buck stops, right?
When does the debt for the country become due? When does somebody go, hey, oh, by the way, we just can't keep spending?
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't keep kicking the can down the road forever, can you? I don't know. It just seems like you can. I don't think anybody has that answer to the question.
Well, there's a couple things I think playing out, and with government debt, right? If they've devalued the currency, it causes inflation, right?
For sure.
And inflation is the hidden tax that central banks use.
Mm-hmm.
So when they inflate products, goods, services, it artificially increases the value. So it's devaluing your currency. What that also does at the same time is it devalues your debt. So your debt, while it may be bigger, like everything costs more over here and there's more money supply. So, it's actually a smaller percentage. So you can inflate away your debt. But that
sounds like Inflategate, but not with footballs.
Right. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Kind of like Inflategate, not Deflategate. Right. It's kind of the opposite. But that's in theory what it looks like they're trying to do on some level is inflate, use inflation to devalue the debt that we owe. Yeah. Right. So I had someone say, like, all right, well, imagine what would happen if tomorrow the Fed said, all right, we're going to fix the price of gold at $10,000 an ounce.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything adjusts to that. They're like, if it's $50 higher, we're selling. If it's $50 lower, we're buying. Like whatever. Right.
Did you see Warren Buffett's quote the other day about?
No, what did he say?
The budget deficit. He said if Congress doesn't, he goes, I think there should be a rule. If Congress isn't within 3% of the GDP, what we take in versus what we're spending, if you're not within 3%,
inelectable or like
you're not able to
run
to seek re-election. And Elon Musk retweeted it.
Oh yeah,
like,
I mean, well, it's
great idea.
Great idea. And yeah, it's what people don't understand, and I think people are starting to wake up to, is that it is a way that they can steal money from the American population, right? If they just keep going into debt and spending money, where's the money going? Right? Yeah. Well, a lot of it goes to our military.
Sure.
Okay, so they say, $200 billion goes to Ukraine. Well, did it really go to Ukraine? No. It went to American defense contractors.
Yeah.
So they took, basically what they did is they said, all right, we're going to take $200 billion of debt against our population.
Yeah.
And hand it over to our, Raytheon and Boeing and your defense contractors that build weapons. So now the people that own those companies are $200 billion richer.
Yeah.
They get, Ukraine gets bombs and missiles and all this stuff to go kill people, which is terrible. And then the American taxpayer is left on the hook for the bill.
Yeah.
So who wins? Not the American taxpayer.
Nope.
The people that own those defense contractors.
That's right.
And it's, the media is often complicit in that, and they sell the sob story of this group and that group, and they don't get along, and this is the reason, and you take this side, and people are angry, and there, throughout history, there's been war and conflict and battle, and I don't like war just as much as the next person, right? And what I do know is that if someone doesn't ever put a stake in the sand and say, I'm not going to kill someone else, they'll never end.
Right.
Which is actually what the defense contractors want.
Yeah.
Which is like, it makes sense, right? Like that's their business model.
Yeah.
And so if we don't get that under control on some level, it's the debt is going to be something that's just,
I know,
we're all going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Or they'll just break the currency.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, sorry, we can't afford the debt.
Yeah.
Dollar's no good anymore. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wipe it out. Here's this new currency. Right?
Maybe it's Bitcoin.
Right? I've heard a lot about that. But
so can Dallas be saved?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Dallas is a lot going for it.
For sure.
And for companies that want to get involved, this is a time to be proactive and not reactive, right?
Right.
San Francisco, you are totally reacting to terrible problems. It's like you're already bleeding everywhere, right? You're dead on the table. You flatlined. We got to try to revive it, right?
We don't have a lot of people pooping in the streets right now.
Not yet. I've seen it, but not very often. Right now, you've just maybe you've got a flesh wound, right? Little my Python reference there, but yes, you got a flesh wound, and we need to sew it up.
That's right.
Right? Attach the arm back. We can save the city of Dallas. And if Dallas falls, the rest of the suburbs will start to fall after it. So we need to get Dallas back online, head in the right direction, heading north, not geographically, but economically.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of room to grow south, right? And
now, do we know when will the candidates kind of start being announced for all the city council seats? When will that?
You probably might start hearing about it
after Christmas.
Oh, you'll probably start hearing it in the fall. People just start tweeting about it or just talking about I'm going to run. But
do you have some insights into some people that could be saviors? And we don't have to talk about them or names or right now, but some. I mean, are we grooming anybody for any of these positions?
I don't know. We don't work with any candidates.
Yeah.
We don't lobby candidates. We don't fund any candidates. We just help kind of score who's the best candidate, right? But I think as we've grown and the influence that our organization is starting to hold becomes larger, you get better candidates who feel like they have a chance to win, right? Because
I mean, is Julia gonna run?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she'll run. But like I've had many of those conversations with young executives that are like, well, I would run for city council. If I felt like I had a good chance at winning, like I would totally do it. And to me, that's an exciting place to be, because we want people to, because there's a lot of people that want to help.
Yeah.
But they like, I don't want to run and get dragged through the mud, and then all the people that I align with don't vote anyway, right? And only 6% of the city turns out.
Yeah.
Right? And that's their concern. And we have a couple companies that are actually creating what they're calling the Employee Fellowship Program. And what that is they say, all right, well, here's this program. If you as an employee apply to it and you get accepted, then we will allow you to run and hold public office while you still maintain your
full-time
current job, your current salary, even if it's like reduced hours, because you are, serving the city and serving the community. And they will be supportive and help educate them on the things they don't know and about how the timelines and stuff. It's an important part of the equation that the companies say, like, hey, we want you to employee to also be a part of your city's government and leadership. And what an asset to the company, right? Having someone on the city council or having someone that has that experience in government relations and building relationships in the city.
So if you're somebody listening to this podcast, for instance, and you're interested in running for Dallas City Council or any city council for that matter, who should be like your first call? Like who should those people reach out to?
Well, I mean, if they reached out to us, we could point them into direction we know political fundraisers or people who have run campaigns or, where if I don't know someone of, where they want to run, or we can ask around. We have our network is big enough.
You know a few people.
Well, I know some people, and I want to help, and that's one of the things we do with MCBA is connect people, and
well, that's why I'm sitting here today talking to you, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, hey, man, I just want to help. I want the city to prosper. I want it to be great.
Yeah,
and I just asked that question because I feel like those positions on city council are so important moving forward.
They are.
We have to get people that want to take on those opportunities, right? And so a lot of people think about it, but they maybe they don't know that really what's the next step, right? Like, okay, well, reach out to MCBA and y'all point them in the right direction.
It's true.
Yeah,
so. we will connect the dots.
Yeah.
And we've had politicians, Democrat and Republican state senators come to our luncheons. We've had the Secretary of State speak. We've had the Lieutenant Governor speak. Obviously Michael Levy's.
Oh yeah, you
Scott
got great
Beck,
leaders.
So
Yeah, sure.
Peter Brodsky. We've got an array of people that our next luncheon is Nicole Nosek, who's going to come speak.
Yeah.
So
what you guys do, but on top of that, just the networking opportunities before and after are pretty tremendous. I mean, you got just founders and CEOs of a lot of major companies all in the city sitting in the same room,
which is rare.
Which is very rare.
And because most of these individuals send delegates to these types of events, but we're not in a hotel ballroom.
Right.
We're in Perry's or we're in Carbone or we're in a nice restaurant and rent the place out, and it's a nice event. Mm-hmm. With a great speaker and an exceptional network. Well,
and if you're a person who just, at the end of the day is patriotic and believes in the right to vote, period.
Sure.
And you're a leader in this city, it's just such a great way to get the turnout of your employees involved.
Absolutely.
From a civic perspective of helping different organizations, whether it be adopt a block. I know that you guys are doing stuff like that all over the town, right? Just trying to make the city better.
Yeah. Make Dallas great again.
Make Dallas. Yeah, we can talk about that too.
Yeah,
make Dallas great.
Get your hat, right?
That's
Let's go.
GreatStateHat.com.
GreatStateHat.com. Check it out.
Check it out. Sure. But, you know, I mean, that's what it's really all about.
Sure.
You know, and so it's just a great thing that you guys are doing. Really.
Well, I appreciate it. And as many, we call it problems or opportunities that we have in the city of Dallas.
Sure.
What I've come to find is that there are so many people that care and that want to help and that want to make it better. And not just certain parts of the city, like the whole city.
Yes.
And that gives me hope.
Yeah.
Like a lot of hope. And
for sure,
the more leaders, company leaders that step up like yourself, that say, you know what, I'm going to actually do something instead of just complain. Because a lot of people just complain.
Sure.
But getting your employees out to vote, helping them understand the issues and why their vote matters on the local level, it's where it impacts the most.
Yeah.
Right? Because some of those races are won by less than 100 votes.
Right. I know.
Right?
That was one of the things that just blew my mind, was just how few votes are actually cast in these elections and how these people are winning by a couple hundred votes. So if you get enough companies involved and you get better voter turnout and you have educated people showing up to the poll that understand, like, hey, this candidate versus this candidate is going to improve, is really going to improve your area.
Right. And people get distracted.
Sure.
They get pulled emotionally by
listen, I was
social
guilty.
topics.
I was guilty in May. Like, I got all the reminders, early voting, and I finally was like, you know what? I'm just going to show up. And I went the day of voting, right?
Yeah.
But I still voted.
Right.
But I just, you know, but yes, you get distracted.
Right.
Life is busy.
It is.
You know.
Distracted. One of the things we do is we have people schedule it on their calendar.
Sure.
People are 75% more likely to do something they put on their calendar.
Right.
But then they get distracted on the social issues. Right? You have a city council member that says, well, you know, I'm pro-choice or I'm pro-life. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're
making no decisions on that.
Right. Right. And that is dividing people on a topic that city council has no jurisdiction on.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. So if you get people to vote for you because you're pro-choice or pro-life and you're a city council member, it's like, well, but you don't have any financial background at all, and you have no organizational background at all, and you don't have any idea how to run a city.
Yeah.
It's going to run into the ground.
Yeah.
And then guess what? If you don't have a city, then you won't have either.
That's right.
Because people leave. Look at small town America. It's dead. It's dying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the
business
business
can't be successful.
Every time I like go on a road trip and I go through little bitty towns and I see these beautiful old
historic buildings,
100-year-old buildings just sitting there vacant, you know, and just tears at me. Like, I'm just like, how do I revive, you know?
Right.
Because I love real estate so much.
Sure.
So it always pulls me in. But yeah, I mean, that's the perfect example of just like, you know, you can't let that stuff.
The social stuff, it is divisive. And look, there's always going to be things people don't agree on, but people agree on most things. And that's our focus, is like, let's talk about the things that bring like the company employees together, that like, what can we rally behind? Well, no crime. Yes. No taxes, right? Yes.
Yeah,
good schools. Yes.
I don't know. Some people would say more taxes. Some crazy places.
Okay. Well, I think,
but not
generally. If you're working, most people are like, they want to pay less taxes.
Yes,
right.
Yes. Right.
And it's been a net positive, because up until this point, there hasn't been a platform where people could talk about politics without it being kind of toxic or really sensitive. But we don't. You say, what do you think about abortion? We don't take a stance on abortion. Right. Like we're only local. We're not even county level, because that's partisan, right? We're just city.
Yeah.
And when you take it down to that level, it's a lot easier to realize that everybody's way more alike than they are different.
Yeah.
And talking about the small towns, my first job out of Georgia Tech was a production supervisor job for Formosa Plastics. They had 680 acre plant site, PET, so plastic chips, bottle grade, filament for clothing. In rural South Carolina, Lake City.
Yeah.
There was no lake. There was no city. If they called it Swamp Town, no one would move there.
That's great marketing that they did.
Yeah.
So there was no lake in Lake City.
Yeah. Just like a swamp next to it.
Interesting.
And there was one stoplight.
Okay.
The sign said 5,000 population, but I think it was like.
Is there a lot of Mountain Dew being drank there in that city? Probably?
Definitely.
A lot of Mountain Dew.
Pepsi products, yes. Yeah. But what I found interesting is that it was so small it couldn't support a Taco Bell.
Wow.
Closed. And for, a 23-year-old out of college from Atlanta to go to there, that was terrible. It was like nothing to do at night. It was like, what do you do? Yeah, all the kids, they'd graduate high school and just leave, right? And they'd go somewhere else, go to Columbia.
What was the nearest big city?
Florence, South Carolina, which is about 25 miles north. That's where Interstate 20 ends.
Yep.
In Florence.
Yeah. If
you keep going another hour and 20 minutes from there, you get Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
So you could get to the beach in about an hour and a half. Not bad.
Yeah, on the weekends you could get out a little bit.
Myrtle Beach is not what it used to be in the glory days.
Yeah.
But it's the supply and the demand, right? You need the business there. If you don't have enough people there, it's hard.
Sure.
And that's what these cities are facing is they're losing people.
Yeah.
And that makes their city services harder to execute on. It makes their operations harder, right?
Yeah.
And government is not good at thinning the herd when it's not. But if you watch all of private industry, it always grows and then thins and then grows and thins and grows and thins. And it's like they say, well, let's try this and let's try that and let's try this. And maybe one of those things works out really great and the other two just didn't really take off. Well, let's kill those two and let's keep doing this and then we'll reinvest in something else. And that's life, and it's frustrating. Yes, I've worked for companies that ran out of cash or in that situations before, but when one door closes, another one is opening, right? And the market is shifting. That means there's usually opportunity somewhere if you need to adapt, and the cities have to adapt. Yeah, and the ones that are like the suburbs, they're winning.
Oh yeah, they're
clearly
winning. For sure. Well, hopefully great organizations like you and other business leaders will be stepping up. I mean, what I love about Dallas in general, I think we have honestly the best business community in the entire United States. The people that are here that lead most of these organizations are extremely involved from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Now I think we've just got to there's so much cooperation. There's so much of, I can open up this door for you. I can call this guy. I can help. There's so much of that that's in this city that is nowhere else in this country, right? So if we take that same approach to actually looking at the deeper issues within our city, i.e. crime and homelessness and all these other things, and say, okay, we've now got to pour some of our time into that stuff, and we got to get the right people there, and then ultimately we'll make Dallas great again.
We'll make Dallas great again. I mean, we'll kind of bring it back to where we started. It's the Crow family, like Trammell Crow Sr. was very involved in the building of Dallas and Dallas Fort Worth, right? And like where we put the highways and the interstates and like just all those decisions. It was very intentional and involved with the cities. And we've talked about it before. I tried to think like, when did we lose sight of being involved in the cities? And it was really after World War II and the industrialization and globalization, right?
Yeah.
Companies now could go and do business, conduct trade all over the world because the U.S. Navy provided safe waterways. So then it was easy to, before it was like, I'm getting to know the mayor and the city council people. Well, now I'm getting to know the king of Spain, or we're talking to the queen, or these people over here, and the president of Brazil, and
and so it became less local and more
they kind of turned. They're like, home is great, like the cities are awesome, and then they turned their focus outside, and the city started to like just collapse because no one's paying attention. So now we need our business leaders, leadership in the home again.
Yeah. I would say probably the last 20 to 30 years is when it really started to go down in the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you think about that and you just kind of like look back at Crow like, okay, well, he was retiring and not as involved, and the pros the same way, right? Like the 90s, he was kind of tapering off, right? And so when you have those people not as involved anymore, then you lose city council and you lose things that are slowly eroding the city, and we gotta take it back.
Yeah, and we lost a lot of manufacturing too at about the same time.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
A lot of it went over to China.
Because the 80s and 90s, it was the exodus to China for cheap labor.
Correct.
Right.
And with
the beautiful thing is, me being in commercial real estate and in the industrial space, we're seeing that come back.
Yeah.
Right.
It's coming.
So we got so much manufacturing that's coming back to the States right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And or Mexico.
Right.
And Mexico's on our front doorstep. And so, there's so many corporations now that are going to be in DFW, whether that be for distribution of the final product or raw goods that are going to go down to Mexico to then be assembled.
Sure.
So there's going to be a lot of benefits on that front.
Absolutely.
Jobs coming back.
I mean, that's
right.
That will help revitalize the country in a huge way.
Another thing that's happening in South Dallas, we didn't even get on this tangent, but not so much South Dallas, but like Lancaster, Red Oak, still southern portion of the city. All data center stuff that's going on there.
Right, a lot of data centers.
It's going to change those cities massively, Louis, massively.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of taxes that those guys are going to get are
insane.
It's just too bad none of that's in city of Dallas.
Sure.
But it's going to help improve that southern sector big time from a tax perspective.
Yeah, you've got capital in these areas, and then it's like,
I mean, dude, the streets of Lancaster might be paved in gold here in a few more years. I mean, seriously, like they're bringing home the bacon. Huh? It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. Well, buddy, thanks for coming again, man.
Yeah,
this was a lot of fun.
Great. I always love chatting with you.
Yeah, man. We'll do it again.
Sounds good.
Take care, brother.
You got it.